Hi everyone, welcome to my review of the Ananda Nano from HIFIMAN. $600 headphone, which I think is going to win a lot of hearts. It is not the first Ananda. HIFIMAN has had two other Anandas before this. First was the regular Ananda, the Ananda OG, and then you had the Ananda Stealth, which I reviewed on this channel. So check that out if I don't drop a link to the description of this video, which I will, of course. But in many ways, it's the best Ananda. So why is it the best? Let's just jump right in, talk about its ergonomics, build quality, aesthetics, and then talk about its sound, tonality, and technical performance. And I'll leave you guys with some parting thoughts on how I situate this in the pantheon of HIFIMAN headphones and headphones priced under $1,000. This is priced at $600, which I think is very competitive, and I'll come to all that later. So it's fairly light. It's less than 500 grams. It's somewhat clampy. I do think the clamp will loosen over time. It's somewhat funny how the Edition XS was very spacious and perhaps a bit too big for a lot of smaller noggins, whereas I think this is a bit small if you have a massive head. I have a massive head, but it still fits me. So I can't imagine a situation where this doesn't fit someone's head, although I'm sure there are people with heads that would put my head to shame in terms of dimensions. So clampers aside, which I think is reasonable, the build quality is decent. It's a lot of silver painted plastic. There's also metal here, but the chassis is not metal, as is the case with the HE1000 Stealth, which I've reviewed already. I'm not sure if this will have dropped by the time this goes to YouTube. But your typical HIFIMAN fare, you have this comfort strap and these grills, large ovoid cups, which do have a substantial impact on image size, soundstage width, and all that. This is obviously no slouch. Like other HIFIMAN headphones, this does soundstage well, but I'm not going to talk about sound right away, although I'm yarning to. Overall, it's about 16 ohms in impedance and 94 dB, which makes it very sensitive and more easy to drive than a lot of IEMs even. So you can drive this off practically anything. You can have your, fun with an Apple dongle if you wanted to, although I'm never going to prescribe an Apple dongle because I think it holds back the sound of a planar especially, which feeds off current and higher quality amplification. But yeah, it's very easy to drive, which is perhaps why HIFIMAN has given you this carrying case, because they think this has some kind of a portable use case. You're not going to be able to use it in a cafe or a library, of course, because it's an open bag, but this case is handy if you wanted to move it around or take it to a picnic. This case is, of a reasonable quality in terms of its premiumness, but it's sturdy, so it's not going to fail you or anything. The case opens up and reveals this, plastic bag carrying its stock cable, which I do think holds back the sound. So I do perceive that when I move from this cable to better quality cable, some of the brightness goes away. So that's worth keeping in mind. That's how I feel. It might not be because the new cable adds in some warmth, but because this could be perhaps, taking away some of the warmth of the headphone. And this comes in with, I think, a 3.5 termination, 3.5 mm, but it's sort of plugged into a 4.4 quarter-inch right-angle jack. Adapter, rather. So that's it for the cable. So as might be evident, I would recommend that you switch out the cable, that you swap out the cable. So that's it for build quality, ergonomics, and comfort and aesthetics. Let's talk about sound. Tonality-wise, it's a very interesting HIFIMAN headphone. And if you've seen my other reviews, I do perceive that every HIFIMAN headphone has something unique to offer, although they do have overall house sound similarities. HIFIMAN will have a flat bass, will have a 2 kilohertz, a dip in 2 kilohertz, and then we'll have a pinna gain around 3K, and then there will be some variations in its treble performance and presentation. Some headphones, HIFIMAN headphones, will have more lower treble, some will have more mid treble, and a lot of them will have air frequencies. In general, the sound signature can be typified as neutral bright, so it's not for everybody. This is a HIFIMAN headphone that is also neutral bright, with the very interesting caveat that this has more body than a lot of HIFIMAN headphones that I've tried in the past. And this has more bass impact. There is clearly some mid-bass energy if you look at the frequency response graph, but above and beyond the FR, I do think this packs in quite a punch. Unlike the older generation HIFIMAN headphones, which were not as punchy, this is more similar to an Aria Stealth in the fact that this has a fair amount of punch. I would even say that this punches a bit more than the Aria Stealth. So the bass is very nice here. It's very full, and the mid-range is very nice. Somehow it just sounds very organic. It's possibly because of the lower mids that this has, or the upper bass or mid bass it has. That being said, there's something going on with this particular headphone that I feel like gives it a certain organicness with mid-range that I find lacking even in higher priced HIFIMAN headphones. Very organic mid-range, lush, beautiful vocals, impressive bass performance for HIFIMAN planar, and lovely treble. The treble here is colored, it's not neutral, so you do get more energy. But I do want to emphasize that with the right sources, this treble energy doesn't sound fatiguing. The HIFIMAN Audio Angel is a DAC amp that I will strongly recommend for you HIFIMAN lovers because it does have an effect of making HIFIMAN treble a little less airy, a little less sparkly, but gives you a little more body in the presentation because the DAC amp from HIFIMAN Audio does have more body in its presentation. I've reviewed that in the past. So with the Angel, this was angelic. This was full of warmth in the lower mids and the bass, whilst retaining the treble airiness while also making sure the treble never really got bright and fatiguing. Love that pairing. So I do think it's very source sensitive, so keep that in mind. Technical performance wise, very resolving as one would expect from HIFIMAN headphones. They're all resolving. At $600, this is awesome. This is like clipping at the heels of an Aria. 90% of an Aria is basically what I would say. More resolving than an Edition XS. It's also more punchy than an Edition XS. Edition XS had decent bass. Dynamics wise, I think this is superior. Soundstage width wise, it's interesting because it's not as wide as an Edition XS. It's not a narrow sounding headphone. No HIFIMAN headphones to my mind are narrow sounding. They're lovely in their soundstage, but this has a more intimate presentation whilst retaining the image placements and pinpoint accuracy of imaging that HIFIMAN is famous for. Wonderful imaging, soundstage width is decent. It's not as wide as a lot of other HIFIMAN headphones are, like the Edition XS. It's certainly not as wide as the Aria still. However, it's not narrow by any stretch of imagination, and it is a nice departure from HIFIMAN sort of, diffuse, wise sounding presentation in that it is somewhat intimate. And finally, timbre wise, like I said, is very organic sounding, so I love it for timbre. Wonderful headphone, guys, in terms of tonality and technical performance. I mean, there are no major caveats except if you have a really large head, you might struggle with it. And if you're very treble sensitive, you might struggle with it. Swap out the cable, get a nice DAC amp that is somewhat warm sounding that pairs well with it, and you'll be in bliss. You'll be having a lot of Ananda, which is, like I said, Sanskrit for happiness. That's it, guys. I hope this review was useful. If it was, give it a like. If you follow my work, then thank you. If you don't follow my work, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye-bye.